Yo, what's up, people? It's your boy. I'm Chris the Dom One, and I am back with another video. Check out my last live stream a couple of hours ago talking about Kawhi Leonard and the future of the Philadelphia 76ers. Also, follow me on Twitch. I'm Chris the Dom One Gaming. Twitch. I probably won't start streaming on Twitch until maybe this weekend. But subscribe anyway. Subscribe and enjoy. You will not be disappointed, including this channel as well. Hit the notification bell, all right? So, with that being said, let's get into today's topic. I kind of wanted to touch on this briefly over the weekend. Chris Paul and the Houston Rockets, we all know they've been eliminated out of the playoffs by the Golden State Warriors. Remember last year, there was talking all this mess about and this smack about how if Chris Paul wasn't injured, they could have dethroned the Golden State Warriors, okay? So the Golden State Warriors had no Boogie Cousins going into this series, and Kevin Durant got injured. It was Game 5. They had two opportunities, Game 5 and Game 6, to close, at least make it very interesting for the Golden State Warriors, and they lost on both occasions. But what this particular report is suggesting is how petty Chris Paul is about the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry was in a shoot-around in the Houston Rockets arena, and Chris Paul kicked him out of his shooting, tried to kick him out of his own shooting session. You know, every player gets a shooting section, maybe a shooting session, okay? Maybe an hour, 30 minutes to get relax and get into your shooting form. That's what shooters do. Shooters shoot. And Chris Paul, who is not known to be a shooter, all right? I'm not saying that he's bad, but what I'm trying to say is that's what he doesn't hang his hat on, being a shooter. He's an old school traditional point guard. He's a floor general, okay? But he tried to shut down Steph Curry's shooting session, and Steph Curry remembered that, and and he had he already had motive into trying to close out the Houston Rockets. That even gave him even more motive to close out the to close out the Houston Rockets, okay? So, here's the deal. I'm not going to go into full details about that. I thought it was petty, thought it was childish, very immature of Chris Paul. And, Chris Paul has a lot of things to worry about than to try to go into a gym to close out, to try to shut down Steph Curry's shooting session, okay? But the bigger picture and the bigger scope of this is the future of the Houston Rockets. Can they improve on top of this roster? And it's going to be very, very difficult, okay? I give it a 10% chance of even happening. My logic is the roster that you see today is pretty much the roster you're going to see next year, okay? Because they got parts that no one wants, and the salaries are too high to even intrigue or even request to see if they can trade one of these assets to another team, okay? Chris Paul has a contract. I think he's the 5th highest player when you talk about salary. Do a lot of money this year, a lot of money next year. If Chris Paul was like 5 or 6 years younger, I could see a possibility or a theory of maybe a team kicking the tires around, seeing if they want to trade for the services of Chris Paul. But Chris Paul is over his prime. He's got a lot of mileage, and that salary, not a lot of teams are going to be asking for the services of Chris Paul. Plus, he's older. He's a step slower, okay? And people witnessed that in this year's playoffs, all right? If you was really paying attention, you could, see last year where he was slowing down some even last year, okay? So, and a lot of people want to point to, well, he was injured. He had a lot of injuries and stuff like that. You can, when you're a step slower when you try to juke somebody and they don't fall for it. And the last result, when you're an older player, you do the ball fake. You do the pump fake, try to pump them out of jumping up and stuff. When you start doing that, that's your body telling you that your athleticism is out the window. Okay, so you don't have you don't have much of all as athleticism. Okay, so they got a lot of players on that roster that when you look at their salaries, it's going to take a lot to even trade for those players. Now, they're not going to trade James Harden. Okay, of course not. They're not going to trade James Harden. I think James Harden has maybe a good 4 or 5 years of what he's doing today. He can still resemble some of that in the next 4 to 5 years. Okay, till he starts slowing down. But when you look at Chris Paul and when you look at everybody else on that roster, and I forgot the guy who has the blonde streak in the middle. I had his name in my head for a second. I should go and research it, but it's no harm, no foul. Chris Anderson, I don't see them. They try to trade him last year. Okay, nobody with no takers. This year, nobody's not going to want the services of him. So a lot of the Houston Rockets parts, if they want to, revamp it and rechange it, they're going to have to do some, they basically have to see if they can just do a payoff with these players, because these players, when you look at their contracts, nobody wants these contracts, plus they're older. Okay. Kenneth Fareed, I think they only got him for like 1 year. Chances are he's probably going to go to a contending team and, just ride, because Kenneth Fareed, you have to, he's an older player. Okay. So it's not like he can demand the market. He can demand X amount of dollars. And a lot of teams are interested in Kenneth Fareed. Okay, it's just, it is what it is. This new age of NBA, they like for players to be able to push the ball up and down the court and shoot all over the gym. Okay, and Kenneth Fareed does not fit that description. Chris Paul, in the 80s, 70s, and 80s and early 90s, that talent that he has, he can be extend that throughout his career. I mean, even when he gets older, okay? Because you have to admit, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was a lot slower pace. Not a lot of people shooting the ball all over the place. You didn't have centers shooting threes and things of that nature. It was a traditional basketball set, okay? So Chris Paul would flourish in those generations. Unfortunately, when you look at today's NBA, you don't need an old school point guard, a traditional point guard to win championships. Steph Curry does not fit that mold. Russell Westbrook does not fit that mold. James Harden was a point, won't fit that mold. He doesn't fit that mold, which I kept telling everybody. I remember 3 or 4 years ago, I made a video talking about they talking about making James Harden a point. I said it would not work. Okay. Yes, they went to the playoffs, but it goes to show it didn't work so much that the following year, they traded for Chris Paul. So, a lot of these players, they may have the title point guard, but they're technically not point guards. Okay. Not the traditional standard of point guard. Okay. So, you got the Rockets, they got a lot of pieces that, when you look at their salaries, it's hard for them to make trades. They're going to pretty much have to, cash these contracts out, write them out, like Carmelo Anthony did, like several other players did. When you have a player, and their talent is not the same like it once was 4 or 5 years ago, but they got this huge humongous contract and you can't move them. So you have to basically, go to the player and buy his contract, try to buy him out of his contract. And that's basically what the Houston Rockets can do. If you want to improve that roster, okay. Clearly, you want Chris Paul, but it'd be great if you can get Chris Paul at a discount. You know, Chris Paul with a discount at a discount. Now you got enough salary to add other pieces. And, look, I'm not trying to hate on a player. I think a player should get whatever money that he or she deserves, okay? But when you're talking about championships, okay, you have to sacrifice, okay? You have to sacrifice some way. You either have to sacrifice your time, you have to sacrifice your patience, and you do have to sacrifice your money. You can't, you can't have the mindset of I want to win championships, but I also want to be the highest paid player. The two don't mesh very well. Okay, when LeBron James' best successful years, he was paid. He wasn't the highest paid player, but with that money that he was saving for Miami and Cleveland in his early years, gave them the ability, the flexibility to sign other players, okay? And when his first time in Cleveland, they didn't do too well with players, signing other players. But when he went to Miami, Pat Riley, had the opportunity of not only the big three, but he had players around the big three like Ray Allen and such, okay? So if you want to win championships, being the highest paid player and winning championships, they don't go hand in hand, okay? You got to do either or. And the problem with the Houston Rockets is they got a lot of players on the roster that are, max. You can look at them as max players. And it makes it hard and difficult to add other pieces. Like when JJ Redick, when this summer rolls around, JJ Redick is a free agent. JJ Redick can really fit well with Mike D'Antoni and the Houston Rockets. But the problem is you don't have enough salary to get the opportunity to sign JJ Redick because you're paying out and forking over a lot of money to these other players that you have on your roster. Okay? So Daryl Morey is going to have to figure out a way. Okay, that's the analytics god. He's going to have to figure out a way to add players to that roster, and they can't go for a JJ Redick. They can't go for a Kevin Durant. There's no way in the world they can go for a Kevin Durant. But you can't get that established type player. Okay, clearly the Rockets need another scorer other than James Harden. Okay, Chris Paul can still be your floor general, but it'd be great if you can get Chris Paul at a discount. But you're paying max dollars for Chris Paul, and Chris Paul's prime is behind him. Okay, not in front of him, behind him. Okay, so to me, the Rockets have real issues financially. They're cap strapped, and you can't improve that team that way. You're basically going to have to go into the draft and improve that way. You're going to have to any free agents that are still out there on the streets, and there's a reason why they're still out there on the streets. You can probably sign for the minimum, the league minimum, to get them to play for the Houston Rockets, okay? And they tried that with Carmelo Anthony last year. Carmelo Anthony didn't fit well with the Houston Rockets. And, when you look at it, it don't fit. It won't match because you have an ISO player in Carmelo Anthony, and you're sticking him to the wing. And once you kick it off to him, the ball stops. And it's not no disrespect to Carmelo Anthony. It's just the simple fact of it is that Carmelo Anthony is an ISO player. He's a lot older. It's hard for him to change his ways. It'd be different if Carmelo Anthony had the mindset and was able to change his ways into being a spot-up shooter. Carmelo Anthony was never known to be a spot-up shooter. He was always known to be an ISO player. So So it is what it is. I feel like the Rockets are going to have to improve that roster in other ways instead of signing free agents. They're going to be out of the market, and there's going to be a lot of great shooters in this market in this summer that the Rockets desperately need, but they cannot afford them unless they can trade these other assets that they have on their roster that's making a lot of money. Somehow trade them to get the cap flexibility to sign those free agents. Okay, that's the only way it's going to work. But it is what it is. Guys, tell me what you think. Rate, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll know when my next video goes down. It's your boy, and I'm out of here. I'll see y'all on the next live stream.